Do you know why remarrying after 70 often brings more regret than happiness? If you're over 70 and considering tying the knot again, this might be the most important thing you watch today. At first glance, getting remarried seems like a second chance at happiness. But what if I told you that for many seniors, it becomes a source of stress, loss, and disappointment? The truth is, once you cross the 70-year mark, the risks of remarriage change dramatically, and what felt like love can quickly turn into financial chaos, emotional turmoil, or even a legal disaster. This isn't about pessimism or cynicism. It's about wisdom, preparation, and the desire to protect the life you've spent so long building. Perhaps someone is putting pressure on you, or maybe you're just lonely and hoping to find a close companion. That's completely understandable. But before you walk down the aisle again, you need to hear this truth. A truth too many people discover when it's already too late. This video isn't here to scare you, but to help you make the most thoughtful and considered decision for your future. So if you've ever wondered if remarrying in your golden years is a good idea, stay with me because the last reason might completely change how you view love, trust, and independence after 70. Reason 1. Financial insecurity. At first glance, love at 70 seems like a blessing. Someone to talk to, share a meal with, and enjoy quiet moments. But many older adults don't realize that remarrying at this age can drain their financial safety net faster than you can imagine. You've spent decades building your savings, earning your Social Security, and making your house a home, and just one signature on a piece of paper, one trip to City Hall, can put all of that at risk. It's not because the person you're marrying has bad intentions, but because marriage legally combines your assets. And if your new spouse has debts, medical bills, or even children from a previous marriage with their own expectations, you suddenly become part of their financial world, whether you like it or not. Many seniors enter a second marriage thinking they can just keep everything separate, but the system doesn't always work that way. Once you remarry, your eligibility for certain benefits, like widow's benefits from Social Security or other subsidies, can disappear. I know of cases where a woman lost her survivor benefits after remarrying, leaving her with a smaller income than she ever expected, and she had no idea it would happen until the money simply stopped coming. Then there's the issue of inheritance. You may have grown children or even grandchildren you plan to leave something to, but a second marriage without proper legal planning can redirect those assets to your new spouse or their family. And even if you trust your new partner, relationships change, families clash, promises are broken, and before you know it, your legacy slips right through your fingers. The psychological blow of such a financial loss is powerful. Older adults who feel financially insecure often begin to feel powerless, anxious, and even ashamed. They might avoid talking to their children about their situation out of embarrassment, or worse, try to hide the problem altogether. The independence they worked so hard to protect begins to crumble, and the marriage that was supposed to bring joy becomes a daily reminder of what they've lost. Take Eleanor, for example. She was 74 when she remarried a kind man she met at a book club at the local community center. They were both widowed and found comfort in each other's company. But what Eleanor didn't know was that her new husband had significant credit card debt and no savings. Within 2 years, she was draining her own retirement funds to help him stay afloat, and her children were devastated when they learned she had changed her will under pressure. What began as love turned into quiet financial panic. When you're over 70, financial stability isn't just about money. It's about peace of mind, dignity, and the ability to live on your own terms. Remarriage can offer emotional comfort, but the financial consequences can be staggering. If you've made it this far with a roof over your head, food in your kitchen, and a plan for the future, take a deep breath before you walk down that aisle again. Your heart might be saying yes, but make sure your checkbook isn't screaming, "Don't do it." Reason 2, the burden of healthcare. When you remarry after 70, you're not just sharing your heart, you're also signing up for another person's health marathon, whether you realize it or not. And at this stage of life, health isn't a side topic. It's front and center every single day. You've likely spent a lifetime caring for others, your children, your first spouse, maybe even your aging parents. And now, just when you're finally ready to rest and focus on your own well-being, A new marriage can saddle you with the role of a full-time caregiver once again. Let's be honest, by the time we reach our 70s, most of us are already juggling doctor's appointments, keeping track of a handful of pills and watching our diets. Maybe you have arthritis in your knees, fluctuating blood pressure, or you're managing diabetes. These aren't minor things. They take energy. When you bring another person into your daily life who may have even more complex health issues, you suddenly become responsible not only for yourself, but for them too. This means more doctor visits, more medications to manage, and more emotional energy. It might start slowly. Maybe your new spouse forgets to take his pills, or maybe he needs a little help getting out of bed. But over time, that little bit of help can turn into around-the-clock care, and it can drain you not just physically, but emotionally. What was supposed to be a partnership can start to feel like a burden you never expected to carry. What many people don't talk about is that this kind of caregiving can actually shorten your own life. Studies have shown that elderly caregivers often neglect their own health. They skip their own doctor's appointments, eat poorly, sleep less, and become socially isolated because all their focus is on the other person, and all the while their own body and spirit quietly fade. This is exactly what happened to a woman named Pauline I once met at the local senior center. She remarried at 76, and at first it felt like a fairy tale. Her new husband was charming, sweet, and funny, but a year later he had a minor stroke, and suddenly Pauline was lifting him, bathing him, and managing his rehabilitation schedule, all while ignoring her own knee pain and worsening eyesight. By the time she sought help, she was exhausted, depressed, and on the verge of a breakdown. Her spirit wasn't broken by a lack of love, but by unspoken expectations. And here's the hard truth. No matter how much we want to be there for someone, you can't pour from an empty cup. At this stage of life, your energy is sacred. It needs to be preserved. Remarriage might feel like an invitation to happiness, but without clear boundaries, it can quietly become a long-term health liability you didn't sign up for. So before you say, "I do" again, ask yourself, am I ready and able to take on the care of another person's health, today, tomorrow, and every day after? If you have even the slightest doubt, listen to it. Your well-being matters just as much as anyone else's. In fact, right now, it might matter more than ever. If you're still watching and finding these points valuable, please type the number 2 in the comments so I know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single video. Your support helps us continue to create great content to inform and inspire you. Now let's continue. Reason 3, legal complexities. One of the most underestimated dangers of remarrying after 70 isn't emotional, it's legal. Many seniors don't realize that entering a new marriage in their later years can create a tangled web of financial and legal problems that can have lasting consequences, not just for you, but for your children and even your grandchildren. Let's start with your estate. You may have spent a lifetime building your legacy, a modest home, a pension, savings, maybe even a few cherished family heirlooms. You probably have your beneficiaries chosen, a will written, and everything planned out. But the moment you remarry, all of that can change. In many states, a new spouse is legally entitled to a legally mandated share of the estate, even if your will says otherwise. This means your children could receive less or, worse, get dragged into legal battles after you're gone, and it's not limited to inheritance. Remarriage can also affect your retirement income, especially if you're receiving survivor benefits. Many women who were married to their first husbands for decades are entitled to these benefits, which can provide a stable income. But remarrying, even for companionship in your later years, can reduce or completely eliminate those payments. That's money you may have been counting on, suddenly gone because of a new marriage certificate. Then there are the issues of medical decisions and power of attorney. If something happens to you, an accident, an illness, a sudden hospitalization, your new spouse may automatically become your legal decision maker. Even if your adult children know your wishes better or are more equipped to handle the situation, they can be legally sidelined. And if the relationship between your children and your new partner is strained, the fallout can be heartbreaking. Catherine, 81, found herself in the middle of such a nightmare. She remarried a man she met in a choir at the VFW hall, thinking they would just be a support for each other in old age. But when she fell ill, Her new husband legally had the power to make all the decisions her daughter vehemently disagreed with. They ended up in court, fighting not just over treatment options, but over who would inherit the house Catherine had wanted to pass down to her grandchildren. Catherine once said, "I thought I was finding comfort in my twilight years, but instead I created a mess I never wanted." Many older women, especially those who worked hard to create a secure retirement for themselves, don't want to think about legal formalities when it comes to love or loneliness. But this is precisely when clear thinking is most crucial. A second marriage isn't just a personal choice, it's a legal contract with far-reaching implications. At this stage of life, clarity is your best friend. Asking the hard questions isn't unromantic. It's wise and it's an act of love, not just for yourself, but for the family that's been by your side for decades. If you value your legacy, your peace of mind, and your family's well-being, do not underestimate the legal complexities that come with remarrying, because what feels like a new beginning can sometimes lead to an unintended, chaotic end. Reason 4, the loss of personal freedom. After 70, the one thing you've truly earned more than money, titles, or recognition is your freedom. The freedom to wake up when you want, eat what you like, and spend your days on your own terms. You've lived for decades caring for others, following rules and making sacrifices. And now, this is supposed to be your time. But remarrying can quietly take that away, sometimes faster than you could ever imagine. When you get married in your younger years, compromise is part of the deal. You're building a life together, making decisions as a team. But by the time you're 70, your habits, rituals, and preferences are deeply ingrained. You've learned what brings you peace, what keeps you healthy, and what company you enjoy. Adding someone new to that carefully constructed rhythm can feel more like a disruption than a joy. Let's be honest, at this age, most of us are set in our ways, and there's no shame in that. You've earned it. But living with someone again means giving up a piece of that structure. Maybe your new partner likes the TV on all day while you enjoy a quiet morning with a book, or he expects a big hot meal every night when you're used to a light and simple supper. These differences may seem small at first, but they quickly add up, draining your patience and turning your peaceful home into a place of quiet tension. There's also the emotional labor that comes with any close relationship, the listening, the adjusting, the explaining. You might find you're spending more time managing moods, negotiating plans, or even dealing with your partner's family than you are doing the things that bring you joy. Suddenly, your hobbies get pushed aside, your alone time feels like a luxury you have to ask for, and the independence you cherish so much slips away, inch by inch. Think of the story of Frances, a 76-year-old widow who remarried after 5 years of being on her own. At first, she loved the companionship, the shared dinners, the walks in the park, and having someone to talk to in the evening. But over time, she realized she had given up her quiet mornings, her solo trips, and even control over the thermostat. "I didn't mind compromising when I was younger," she told me, "but now every little change feels like a loss." This doesn't mean companionship is bad or that love disappears with age, but it does mean you have to ask yourself, am I truly ready to go from freedom to joint decision-making again? Because at this stage, peace and personal space can be more valuable than partnership. Some might say that love requires sacrifice, and maybe it does, but in your 70s, you've already sacrificed enough. You deserve a relationship that honors your rhythm, your comfort, and your freedom, not one that asks you to give it all up again. If you're still watching and finding these points valuable, please type the number 5 in the comments so I know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single video. Your support helps us continue to create great content to inform and inspire you. Now let's continue. Reason 5, financial entanglements. Remarrying after 70 can bring emotional warmth, but financially, it often opens the door to unexpected stress, confusion, and long-term vulnerability. When you're 30 or 40, combining your life and finances with someone else can make sense. You're building together, saving together, and planning for a future that's still a long way off. But in your 70s, the rules of the game change. You're no longer building, you're protecting what you've earned over a lifetime. And a second marriage can quietly undo decades of that work. Let's be clear about one thing. Money in your later years isn't just numbers in a bank account. It represents your security, your independence, your choices. And when you remarry, your financial world doesn't just expand, it merges with someone else's. This means your assets, your retirement funds, your savings, and even your debts can become shared, depending on how the marriage is structured legally. And if every detail isn't thought through and put on paper beforehand, it's very easy to lose control. Here's where it gets complicated. Let's say your new spouse has children from a previous marriage. What happens to your money if something happens to you? Will your assets go to your own children or to his? Without proper legal protections like updated wills, prenuptial agreements, or clear estate plans, you could be leaving behind a legal tangle that will cause conflict between the very people you love most. And those conflicts can tear families apart. Or imagine this scenario. You've worked your whole life to pay off your mortgage and now live comfortably on your retirement savings. But your new spouse brings unpaid debts, or worse, financial habits that don't align with yours. Maybe he wants to lend money to his kids, or maybe he runs up credit card bills. Suddenly, your nest egg is at risk. One signature, one joint account, and your carefully built foundation can start to crack. I once spoke with a man named Gene, 82, who remarried after his first wife passed away. He didn't think much about the financial side. He thought love would sort it out. But within 2 years, he found himself paying off his new wife's medical debts, supporting her adult son, and eventually selling the lake house he had promised to leave to his daughter. "I just wanted someone to be with," he told me, "but I ended up giving away half my life." This doesn't mean remarrying is always a financial danger, but it does mean that without clear planning, honest conversations, and protective legal measures, your finances could be at far more risk than you realize. And at 70, you don't have the same margin for error that you once did. So ask yourself, do I have the energy, the clarity, and the time to manage a complex financial merger? Am I prepared to protect not just my heart, but my assets, my legacy, and the people I care about? If you feel even a hint of uncertainty, you owe it to yourself to pause, reflect, and get the advice you need before making such a permanent decision. At this stage of life, you deserve security, not constant stress. Remarriage can be a beautiful thing, but only if it doesn't come at the cost of your financial peace of mind. And in conclusion, by the time we reach our 70s and beyond, we have weathered storms most people can't even imagine. We have known love and loss, sacrifice and celebration, silence and laughter. And with each passing year, we begin to see life less in terms of what we can gain and more in terms of what we can finally set down. This is why remarrying at this stage isn't just about companionship. It's a deeper, more personal decision about how you want to spend the most precious years you have left. Perhaps some of you watching this are thinking, "But I'm lonely. I want someone to grow old with." That is a completely valid feeling. Human connection never stops being important. But the truth is, a close companion doesn't have to come from a new marriage. It can be found in good friends, in meaningful family relationships, in community, and within yourself. You don't always find a soulmate at the courthouse. We've been taught to think that being part of a couple is what makes us whole. But what if you're already whole? What if your time now isn't about merging with someone else, but about coming home to yourself? A time to find joy in your own company, a time when you don't have to explain yourself, a time when you don't have to bend and break yourself to fit into someone else's life. That's not loneliness, that's freedom. I've spoken with many older women who remarried and later quietly admitted that they missed their independence, their peace, their freedom. Some wish they had stopped and truly asked themselves what they wanted, not what society expected of them. Because when you're over 70, you are no longer obligated to put on a show for anyone. You don't need to prove your worth through a partnership. You've already proven it just by living this long. So before you say "I do" again, take a moment to say to yourself, "I deserve." You deserve ease, you deserve joy, you deserve rest, the life you want to lead. Remarriage might bring that, or it might not. The important thing is that your choice comes from a place of self-trust, not self-doubt. Thank you for being with us today. We'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below and share one thing you're taking away from today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so please don't hesitate to share. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and support. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it. Your support helps us continue to create great content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.